Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Really glad to have this man back. It is Victor Avila, former federal agent. He's a guy who knows a lot about the border. He's a law enforcement officer that loves this country, and he's got a lot to say about what Biden's doing on the way out. Victor, how are you? Good to see you.
Doing good, Joe. Happy New Year. Great to see you again.
Happy New Year to you as well. We were just talking before we started, and I didn't know about this, and I'm glad you told me about it. The temporary status. What does TPS stand for? Temporary something status?
Temporary protective status.
Okay, now why are they protected? Protected from what? From law? I mean, you can't enforce the law on these people?
That's a great point because you're going to hear, I'm one of those that you're going to hear from that they think this is completely illegal. I think this is completely illegal. But the TPS program is a program that gives certain illegals from certain countries, Sudan, Venezuela, and others, a status to remain in the United States, gives them work permits and other benefits that it continues to be extended. Well, right before you and I got on today, Biden has extended that status, that protective status to these groups for another 18 months, which is going to make it very difficult for the Trump administration to deport these individuals. I think that there's a way around it, that the Trump administration will still get to these individuals and get them into custody, even though the Trump administration might be sued or whatever. Meanwhile, I really don't care about that. What I care about is the protection of the communities and the crime that we've been seeing. And these individuals have to be detained and removed.
Do we know how many people are here under TPS status or not?
We don't know, but it's over millions. It's millions.
Millions of people are here illegally, but like with DACA for the underage people who came, TPS sounds like it just allows them to stay for whatever length of time the current administration wants them to stay. But you and I just discussed this a second ago. It's against the law. It doesn't go with the immigration laws in this country. Why couldn't Trump come in and just change the policy and with executive order say you've got 5 days to get out, or 2 weeks to get out, or 3 months to get out?
I want to see that happen actually with executive order. But on top of that, what I really want is to Congress to finally end this, so we won't go back and forth every 4 years or whatever, and have Congress finally end these type of protections, which I think is going to should be, and if it's not, it should be part of a bigger border protection security package. This is the type of wording that we really need in there. That's why it's important to review these bills once they get in there to see if, in fact, it includes these provisions to stop it from happening again.
It is Victor Avila, VictorAvilaSpeaks.com. Go there. And also the book is Agent Under Fire, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go and get his book as well. I hope you'll be part of the incoming administration. I'll ask you about that coming up. Before we do that, though, do you know Allie Bradley, the reporter from News Nation?
I sure do, and I'm in contact with her a lot.
She's amazing. She does an incredible job. We have her on as often as we can, and every single day she appears to be breaking news. I want to show you this. It's a tweet that she sent me. It's about a Mexican man that has been removed 7 times from the United States. Victor, starting 12 years ago, this guy was sent out of this country because he's a bad guy, came here illegally, breaking the law. Now he's been arrested, and I'm going to show you the picture of this guy, according to Allie, on charges of trying to abduct a woman. Victor, is he a unique case, or are there a lot of people potentially like this in this country that have been sent away 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times that are still back here?
Unfortunately, it's not a unique case. There's many, many of them. I could tell you from personal experience, I dealt with these individuals in my career for 20 years, for a long time. And a lot of these individuals would do exactly this. They got caught several times, actually, different types of crimes, and then eventually get removed, come back, get caught again for another crime, spend another few years in the U.S., then removed. And it's a pattern that I've seen for such a long time. But now it's the way the last 4 years have been has made it even easier for them to roam around our country to get to the point where, like, this individual is charged with a serious crime. They use different identities. They travel around the country. It's very hard to track some of these individuals. This is one of the challenges that Tom Homan and the new department is going to be faced with, as we have to track down these individuals that they seem to only come into the country to commit crimes.
Victor, when it comes to a guy like this, how does he keep coming back? Once we send them away, is there no record that if he tries to come back across the border, because we're letting a lot of people in now, it's not in between the ports of entry, they're coming in the ports of entry. Is he just using a fake name? Do we not have good facial recognition? How do we stop people like this from doing it over and over again?
Number one word is prosecution.
Okay.
That's the lack right here. Is that they're even if they're getting caught, they're not being prosecuted. They're being allowed into the country under the catch and release program. They're falling in the cracks, and the problem when they fall in between the cracks is victims continue to pop up in our country. So this is the number one thing that you're going to see is the prosecution of these individuals because you have them coming in illegally the first time, then the second time, and then the third time. Eventually, they're aggravated felons, which means that they're spending 2 to 5 years in prison just for being illegal. Forget
Right.
about the actual crime that they caught with on top of that. So once you start prosecuting these illegals, you're going to see a mass reduction of people coming back because then they're going to actually be facing consequences.
I want to go back to this story for a second, if you don't mind, because there's something else that jumps out at me here. It says 1/3/25, ICE placed a detainer with Elmore County Sheriff's Office after his arrest for attempted kidnapping. ICE placing detainers is not an automatic thing when you hear people like in Denver, Colorado. The mayor there saying we're not going to help, or governors like Newsom saying we're not going to help, or governors like in New York saying I'm not going to help, and then she says she's going to help. So when ICE puts a detainer, what's the process there? I know that you know this very well.
Yes.
They say we want this guy. He's a bad guy. He's been deported 7 times. We want him. Can the locals say you're not going to have him?
That's the biggest problem, Joe, that we're going to face in the Trump administration is the pushback and the non-compliance of some of these counties and county jails is that they're not going to honor this detainer from ICE. It should be honored. It is a legal document, and what it's telling them is like, listen, no matter what happens with that state charge, whatever he's been charged with, from DUI to murder, whether for any reason he gets bonded out or released, he's not going to hit the streets because he's illegal. Give him to ICE authorities, to immigration authorities, so we could then hold them and put them under removal proceedings to remove them from the country, no matter what the pending status is on that charge. That's what's supposed to happen. But the problem is that a lot of these sanctuary cities are saying, don't you dare contact ICE and let them know like it's a bad thing, even though it would be a good thing to keep a criminal or at least a person that's being charged with a serious crime off the streets.
Well, how do they do it both ways? And it's Victor Avila. Go follow him. It's Victor Avila TX over on X. How do we force their hand? Because you know immigration law better than anybody that I know. So maybe you could tell me the ins and outs of it. If these states and these cities and these idiots, my word, not yours, if they want to not help ICE, yet at the same time they're saying the immigration problem isn't our problem, it's the federal government's problem, how can they have it both ways? We want you to take care of it, but we're not going to help you.
The number one way is economic sanctions, and most of these county jails, a lot of them, I'll tell you, in my instance, El Paso County Jail is subsidized tremendously by the federal government. A lot of money is being poured into these county jails because they're housing federal inmates. When you start cutting them off from that money, it's going to get their attention immediately, not only for the county jails and the county sheriff's department, but other funding mechanisms that are sent from the federal government to those cities, police equipment, training. There's so many ways that we could cut the funding to those cities that's really going to make them think twice about doing this.
Agent Under Fire is the name of the book. It's Victor Avila, VictorAvilaSpeaks.com. Go there. I know that you're in contact with the Border Patrol all the time. I know that you're down at the border all the time. I know that you talk to people on the other side of the border. Is word starting to get back? Because you and I both know that word of mouth has a lot to do with how many people are coming to the southern border. Is word getting back to Mexico, the Northern Triangle, to other countries outside of that area? Are they starting to get the word that January 20th, you're done, you're not getting in?
They did. They got the message already. As a matter of fact, as you and I speak, there's another caravan on its way that is being broken up in this ant operation that they've been doing for the past several months, where they're dispersing small groups of 80, 120, not 1,200 individuals in Eagle Pass, Texas, or El Paso. They're going to break them up so they won't gather much attention from the media. But their goal is obviously to get in before January 20th. And there's a lot of stuff going on with Mexico right now that you and I have to talk about at least one of these days. But I'll tell you really quickly. Mexico is saying one thing but doing another. First, they said they were going to not accept any non-Mexican back in Mexico, and then they walked that back. And just this week, they now agreed that they will be accepting non-Mexicans back to be deported into Mexico. That's huge. And so we're going to be dealing a lot with Mexico. Mexico, another thing, dealing with the fentanyl problem and the cartels. First, they said that the president of Mexico said there's no problem with fentanyl in Mexico.
Wow.
Mexico does not produce fentanyl, but just yesterday launched a huge federal campaign, kind of a public service announcement in their country about the poisonous fentanyl that is killing their citizens as well. So which one is it? Do you have fentanyl or not? This is the confusion. I think Mexico is now really, really concerned about the impact that the Trump administration is going to have in their country.
I wonder what your feelings are on the new president. It's Victor Avila, because Trump said 25% tariffs, and she said, forget it, we'll close the border. And then she said she didn't say that. And then the fentanyl thing that you just said, they don't have a problem with fentanyl. We're not producing the fentanyl, but we all know that they're getting it from China, and the cartels are bringing it into our country through Mexico. Then they weren't going to take back non-Mexicans. Now they will take them back. What do we believe?
What I believe is going to be the actions that they actually come down to. I think you're going to see this a lot. I think this is my prediction. This is my opinion. I think Mexico is going to say a lot of things publicly that actually are not going to be happening privately in the background. I think Mexico is eventually have no choice but to participate with the United States and the Trump administration, but they're not going to acknowledge it. They're very proud people. They don't like to be told what to do, but they know that they're not going to have a choice, especially when it comes to the control of the cartels, the control that the cartels have on their country. And so you're going to see them say all these ridiculous things when the press conferences that she does every morning, the President Claudia Sheinbaum does. You're going to see her say some ridiculous things, but I think in the background, you'd be surprised. I'm getting a lot of calls from people in Mexico that are really, they're willing and able and ready to work with the government administration, especially the Trump administration, to finally go after these cartels.
Victor, how deeply does the corruption run in Mexico? I want to compare it to New York back in the day when there were a bunch of Italian mob families in New York. 5 families, they ran the joint, and then all of a sudden, finally, somebody was smart enough, Rudy Giuliani, to use the RICO Act to get rid of them and break them up and really take them on. They ran for generations that city, and then finally they said enough is enough. Can the Mexican government do the same thing with these cartels? The cartels that are way bigger than the mob families ever used to be. They have billions and billions of dollars in revenue, it seems monthly. So can the corruption be so much that the cartels have the run of the place, or are there good enough people in Mexico that can finally clamp down on them?
I'll say this: there's good people in Mexico. There's not enough of them. The corruption runs rampant, and the cartels are the ones controlling. They're running a parallel government over there, and President Trump really clearly understands that. As a matter of fact, I caught him saying that in one of the last press conference that he did. He understands the control that the cartels have on the entire country, not just the city. And so that's what makes it very difficult for even the good ones and the good people in Mexico that want to make a change. They almost can't because of the control that the cartels have over them. That's why they need the help of the United States government. All we want is for them to say yes and allow us to help them. It's a help me, help you type of situation here.
Right.
And I think you're going to see it. It might be a little rough at the beginning, and like I said, they're not going to acknowledge it. I don't think they're going to acknowledge it publicly because they need to protect their interests. But ultimately, the goal of both countries is to get rid of these criminal organizations.
The criminal organizations and the cartels are horrible. You and I agree to that, but they're very smart and they pivot very quickly. What will they do now? They're going to lose millions and billions of dollars in human trafficking, drug trafficking, as soon as that border is closed again, like it was 4 years ago. What do you think they'll do to make up that revenue?
They're not going to go down without a fight. I'm telling you that these cartels, they're ruthless. They have no concern for any human life. And this is we can't just say, oh, we're going to take out the cartels and it's going to be fine. No, these guys they're going to fight. Remember, they're not just in Mexico. They're here in the U.S. And so we might see some violence and some kind of reaction from them within our own country. That's what we need to be really concerned about because they have a heavy presence all over our country. They're not going to go down without a fight. Obviously, if Mexico and the United States puts their resources together, they're done. They're done. But it's the will that we need to see from Mexico to help us do it.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you about that next. As a very smart military mind and as somebody who loves, to enforce the law and you love freedom and liberty, can the two countries work together? Can the Mexican president talk to President Trump and say, yes, let's do some joint drone strikes and let's show these cartels who we really are? Because, I mean, We will drone strike over in Yemen,
Right.
and we'll drop bombs over in the Middle East, yet we won't go across the border and stop these really bad guys that are killing Americans every day and killing Mexicans even more. Can we work together? Is that something that can happen?
Absolutely. And this is my optimism here speaking, that I think we have no choice now. If we want to save Mexico and even save our country from the violence and the drugs and everything else that we have suffered in the last several decades because of Mexico, this is what we have to do. We have to join forces. There is no other way, because I'll tell you the difference here with President Trump is that we're not going to ask anymore. We're going to protect our country at any cost. And sometimes I think that cost might be at the short end of the stick for Mexico. Mexico knows that. And of course, we're talking about trade. We're talking about an economic impact. We're talking about a lot of things that the cartel is involved. I was going to do a hit the other day about cigarette smuggling and how the cartels are looking at cigarette smuggling as soon as President Biden said that he was going to ban tobacco. So, like you said, they bob and weave and they adjust very quickly, and so they're involved in a lot of other things other than what usually you and I talk about is immigration. But they're involved in a lot of extortion of a lot of trades in Mexico. You help save those trades and the economic, the illicit activity that we wanted to continue, cross-border activity that happens on a daily basis. We want that to continue to happen, and I think Mexico and the U.S. understand that, but again, the corruption puts that black cloud from allowing the good people to want to do it. And sometimes you might just have to force their hand.
Former federal agent Victor Avila, get his book called Agent Under Fire. Go to his website at victoravilaspeaks.com. Let's go back here stateside. If Tom Homan said, hey, Victor, do me a favor, find those 500,000 missing kids, what would you do? Because you and I agree there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids that we don't have any account for. They're handed over to people that probably aren't related to them. It's probably all cartel related. They're probably indentured servants or worse. How do you find them? Can you?
Absolutely. That's my specialty. As you know, Joe, I'm a subject matter expert in human trafficking investigations and victim identification. And I would love to be able to put my expertise back in the Trump administration to do just that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I can help with, but this is one of the most important one that Tom Homan actually has been ordered by and mandated by President Trump to find these kids. We have to find them. These are innocent children that are, we don't know, like you said, they're exploited, they're sex trade. Are they dead? Are they alive? Where are they? We have no idea. That apartment in Houston that received 77 children in the same address, what the heck is going on? We are going to find them. We are going to go, and at least at this point, there's going to be an effort, and there's going to be a law enforcement activity to actually go into these neighborhoods to locate them.
Can you tell me, I've only got 10 seconds left. Can you tell me, are you going to be involved with homing, or can you not say so?
I can only tell you that I'm ready and ready to go whenever the call comes in.
Well, I'll call Tom. I'll tell him to call you. I mean, it's that simple. It is Victor Avila. Go get his book called Agent Under Fire, victoravilaspeaks.com. Follow him over on X, Victor Avila TX. Victor, we appreciate the knowledge and the friendship. Happy New Year, brother. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Same to you, Joe.
All right, man. We're back after this. Stay right here.